Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single week and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tiny Talks. I truly hoped you guys enjoyed last week's episode all about 4 ways to connect with those things that we just love and the things that bring us closer to feeling fulfilled, the things that fill our cup. So if you haven't checked that episode out, I definitely encourage you to check that one out after this episode, of course. It is roughly 7:30 here at night and the sun is still shining, and that just makes my soul, my heart, and my mind so happy. I am definitely someone who thrives when there is more sunshine and more light in my life, so I am super pumped that spring is on its way in roughly a week and we are just getting closer to longer days and sunshine and just the summer breeze. I hope you are all doing fantastic, and I am beyond excited as always to dive into today's content with you guys. And today's episode was actually kind of a surprise. I normally plan out what I'm going to talk about, but sometimes I do just get in the spur of the moment ideas that I feel pulled to share with you guys, because I think whenever I get those callings or those pulls, I feel like it's coming from something within me that I feel could really benefit other folks. And so how this episode actually came to surface was I was going through my phone and my laptop doing the annoying storage update of just deleting things and trying to find space on my phone. Definitely one of the downsides of having an iPhone is running out of storage, especially when you're someone like me who likes to have all of the pictures and all of the music. So I was going through listening through past voice recordings, kind of just looking back at my progress, and I stumbled across a voice recording of my very first podcast episode, which was recorded in September 2021, so roughly 7 months ago. And so I was barely 20 seconds into my first episode, and I just had to pause and literally LOL. I laughed out loud, and not to make fun of myself or to shame myself for where I was at that time, but just reflecting back on how far I've come, because I honestly forget to give myself credit that I have grown over these last 7 months of speaking, and I have improved. But sometimes we don't realize that when we just go episode to episode. But looking back 22 episodes ago, my gosh, the audio was terrible. My voice was so low in energy. I had cracks in my voice. I was so nervous. And honestly, looking back, I'm just proud of myself that I was able to jump on and record and publish that regardless of all the small imperfections that I'm now seeing looking back. But the reason that I talk about that is because without me reflecting back on that episode and without us reflecting back on things in life, we often forget to realize how far we have come and how much we have grown. Because whether we want to admit it or not, or whether we see it or not, we are all growing. Each and every day, each and every moment, we are growing, we are learning, we are evolving. Our brain is constantly downloading new information of things that happen in our day-to-day life so that we're able to grow and to adapt to be the best and highest versions of ourselves. And so what this episode specifically is about is surrounding consistency and why consistency is so important. Because thinking back on my first episode, I very easily could have just left it at that, of keeping the identity that I am not a speaker. I am too shy to do this. No one will ever listen to me. I will never be successful at podcasting. All those stories that I was telling myself. And reflecting back then compared to now, it is night and day. And yes, I still get nervous. Yes, I'm still scared. Yes, I still have cracks in my voice. No, it is most definitely not perfect, but it is definitely much better, and it is for sure improved. And I really think that we as humans are so guilty of that, where we look at our day-to-day life and we just are looking for results in such a small amount of time. And this can be in so many areas of our life. That can be personal development, that can be with food, that can be with fitness, that can be school, whatever it is, where let's just use fitness as an example. We go to the gym one day and a week later, if we're not in the ideal shape that we wanted, we oftentimes give up on it, right? Because we as humans want that instant gratification. We want to feel good. That's why we do those things that we know that we shouldn't, but we do them anyways, because humans like pleasure. We like that instant gratification, right? And so when we think about consistency is very much the opposite of that, where we only really begin to see long growth momentum is when we have consistency, right? These 7 months later, looking back, I can clearly see that there is a big difference. But if I just look at last week's episode compared to this episode now, there might not be that many differences that I'm able to pick up on right away. However, in another 7 months from now, reflecting back on this episode, I'm going to be reflecting again and saying, holy smokes, I should have done this, and this that would have made that episode so much better. But the thing is in each thing that we do, we are operating out of the ability and the capacity that we have at that time. But the thing about that, you guys, is it's like building anything. We need to start at the bottom, add another block, and keep going. But again, we as humans often just get so focused on that short-term thinking and gratification that we forget about consistency. So for today, I really wanted to just talk about more ways to be consistent, because this is something that I too have struggled with big time in my life, where I start one project and then I start another one and then I start another one and then one fails and then I wonder why it fails. But that's because we're not consistent. And I think that we are all very guilty of that, of giving up before things have time to actually flourish. So the first thing that I really want to talk about as far as consistency, and it might seem obvious, but I don't think that it is all the time, but it's holding on to your why, right? Why is it that you're doing the thing that you're doing in the first place? What is the outcome you're trying to get out of that? Because if your outcome is very just short term, obviously it's not something that you have to be fully consistent with. However, for me personally with podcasting, I know that I want this to continue. I want to continue to grow. I want to be a public speaker. I want to continue to thrive and to evolve. And I know that that's not going to happen if I were to give up. So hold on to your why. Why are you showing up in the first place? Because when we have those whys, we're able to trump all those ideas that come into our mind of why we shouldn't do the things that we know that we're supposed to do, that actually help get us to our end result and to build that momentum. The next thing is kind of the same, but a little bit different with going off of your why, but it's being able to really look at where it is that you're going, right? So where is your end result? How can we work every single day to tackle one more block on top of the next to help you get to that end goal? And so for me, something that I have found extremely, extremely helpful, and this is something that I learned in group coaching, is doing daily habits. What are your daily non-negotiables that you are going to do that are going to help you thrive and to grow? And this is a list that you make up for yourself depending on what your goal is. For me specifically, I have 15 things on my list. My goal every single day is to get 10 of those every day. That is my bare minimum. I am striving to slowly grow that to have 11 daily and then 12 and so on and so on. But for right now, I'm finding that 10 is my sweet spot where I'm able to be consistent. Because again, with consistency, you also have to give yourself credit for the things that you're doing. Because for a long time, when I felt like I was just walking in the dust and I didn't really have any momentum, I didn't really have consistency, I wasn't tracking my habits or really having daily habits, I just felt like I wasn't accomplishing anything. But when we're able to look back and see all the things that we've done and how consistent we've been in all of our daily actions, we're able to also give ourselves the credit for all the hard work that we're doing. Because you guys, consistency isn't easy. Because if it was, we would all be doing it. If consistency just came naturally to us as humans, We would all just be rock stars at so many things. But the thing is our mind likes to tell us 100 reasons and 100 excuses of why we can't do something. So then we just don't do it. We put ourselves on the back burner, and then in 5 years from now, we wish that we had just started. So let this be your sign to just start. If you've already started, keep going. Keep showing up. Why are you showing up? Hold on to that. Feel it in your body. Visualize it. Where do you want this to take you? We have endless capacity within us to go and to achieve anything that we want to. But we are the only ones that are able to show up for ourselves to do those things. Our friends' consistency isn't going to help us. If you're in business together, maybe it will for short term, but that's not long-term thinking. So going off those daily habits of having that list of things that you like are driven in you that you're going to do, the next piece of that would be to track them. Have a way that you're able to track your habits. For me, I find Excel spreadsheets the absolute easiest because I can just simply go on my computer, type it in, and it's done. Having a way that you can track is a way that you can look back. So for example, with me, if I notice my podcast numbers are lower, I can go back at that time period and look at where I was consistent and where I was missing. Where was I showing up? Where was I lagging? How can I take that feedback to pour it into the present to help excel that for right now? The next one, again, I guess it just pours off of that. Looking back at your growth. You're able to see how far you've come. Being consistent and ways to be consistent will also help increase your willpower. Because with consistency and with showing up, by doing those daily actions and those daily habits and tracking, by holding ourselves accountable, we're actually raising our self-love and our self-awareness. Because not only are we doing the things that we're telling ourselves, but we as humans like routine. Our bodies like to have a routine. Our bodies and our minds don't like unpredictability. So if we already know the bare minimum of the things that we're going to do every day, at least our mind has control of the things that we're going to do and the things that we want to do. So it helps raise our self-awareness. Think of the time that you told yourself you were going to do something. Again, let's just use the gym as an example. You said, I'm going to go to the gym today after work. And then you didn't go. You're then later on in the evening laying on your couch wishing that you would have gone. How often do we do that in our life? We just shoulda, coulda, woulda. We have that mindset so much. But shoulda, coulda, woulda isn't going to be consistent, and that is not going to get us our end results unless it's by luck. And that's another point that I want to say is that let's say our end goal, we want to have 6 figures, we want to have $1 billion in the bank account. Let's say, for example, you just win the lottery and you get $1 billion. I guarantee you are going to lose that $1 billion quicker by winning it than you would if you worked for it. Because the thing is when we work for something and we have those daily habits and those things that we're doing and we have that why, we've already ingrained in ourselves those things that we know that we have to do. But if someone just gives us something, it's a lot harder to know what to do with it, with that $1 billion, than if we grew our company, grew our business, grew our podcast, whatever it is for you, to get to that point, right? So another reason why consistency is just so important is because good things take time. And I think that that's something that, again, we forget with that want to just have the instant gratification. But nothing good in life comes quickly. And it's also just so much more fulfilling when we're able to give ourselves the credit for the work that we put in to achieve something. Think of it like when we're younger, or even as we grow up throughout our life, we really want something. We go to work or we put in the work to get enough money to get whatever that thing is. It feels so much better to do that than for someone to just give it to us, because we know that we worked for it. And that's the thing with our goals is that, again, they take time. Who's to say how long it's going to take? But that's why long-term thinking and having a long-term vision is so important. We need to end those short-term goals of just checking one thing off and moving on to the next. What is your big picture? Where are you hoping that this takes your life? And again, you'll know in your soul if it's something that you're supposed to be doing because you'll be called to it. It'll make you happy when you do it. You'll feel better when you do it than when you don't do it. That is how I know something for me is in alignment, is when I finish doing it, I feel better than when I started. For me, that is going to the gym. For me, that is healthy eating. For me, that is recording a podcast. For me, that is hanging around people that make me smile and bring out the best in me. Right? We feel better after we do it, even though sometimes doing those things isn't always what we want to do, but we know it's what's best for us. And that's the difference between those small goals and small thinking and the bigger vision. It's going to cause you to get outside your comfort zone. It's going to cause you to have self-discipline. It's going to cause you to get those things out of your life that aren't in alignment. Because all of those distractions and all of those things that aren't in alignment will always be there until we consciously remove them from our lives. So again, good things take time. The last tip that I have on here that I have found to be honestly pretty life-changingly impactful, especially when it comes to being consistent. Because in the beginning, it really wasn't easy. I was someone who would get home from work, I would sit on the couch, watch a show, take a bath, hang out with my dogs, maybe go to a friend's house, right? Not very soul-fulfilling, uplifting things. I was very much just in a go with the flow, whatever kind of vibe, kind of mood. And that wasn't taking me anywhere. And that was actually lowering my vibration and my self-esteem quite substantially. Because we like to feel like we have a purpose. We like to feel like we're living for something larger. And at that time in my life, roughly 2 years ago, I really didn't have that. I didn't have that bigger outcome or that bigger vision. And even if I did, I had found a very hard time finding that consistency. And one thing that helped me substantially was rewarding myself. And when we think of reward, I want you to think of what pops in your head, because that could largely be an indicator of where you're at right now with your growth journey and with consistency. Because if that reward for you is having a beer at the end of the day or is doing something that would be quote unquote toxic, I want you to reframe that. What is something bigger that you can reward yourself with? Is it reading a good book at the end of the day? Is it watching your favorite show? Is it playing a game on your phone for 10 minutes? Whatever it is, ask yourself, what can I reward myself with if I get these 5 things done on my consistency list, my 10 things done on my consistency list, when I track my habits, when I show up, when I do the things? How can I thank myself? My absolute favorite way to thank myself at the end of a day is to get a bath and to read. And for a lot of folks, that might seem very boring and not really, exciting or a good reward. But for me, I know that that means that I've accomplished everything and it's time to relax. And I know that when I get to that point, I'm able to turn my brain off. Because before, when I didn't have that reward for myself, my brain just kept going. It would think about work. It would think about my next podcast. It would think about my next project. It was just nonstop. And yes, we can have ideas flow through us. And yes, we're allowed to ponder. But when I get to that point of my reward, I know that my quote unquote work for the day is done. I give myself permission to shut down. If that goes somewhere else, great. Maybe I'll turn on a quick voice recording, spiel out whatever's coming to my mind, and then resume. But giving yourself that gratification for showing up and doing the work helps us to show up again more consistently so we can get up the next day and do it all over again. Because we can't forget that even though in the midst of being consistent and doing all the things, we are also human, and we also need to tend to ourselves and to our mental health and to do those things that fill our cup. But consistency is just so important, because if we stick with something long enough, especially if it's something that we believe in and that fills our cup and fills our soul and our dharma and we just love it, you're bound to have a successful outcome. Again, I can't promise anything, but if you put in the work and you are dedicated and you are showing up and you are just doing your thing every single day, there is nothing out there to say that you will not be extremely successful. But it is up to you, and it is up to you only to put one foot in front of the other, to do the actions, to do the things, to show up, to be the most consistent version of yourself. The compound effect is real. Turnaround is real. So be consistent. Go out there right now. Find your why. Make that list. Track your habits. I guarantee you are going to thank yourself more for showing up than for not showing up. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. Thank you for being consistent by listening to my episodes. Tiny Talks episodes drop every single Sunday, and I look forward to chatting with you all every single week. It truly does fill my cup and just helps me feel like my purpose is in alignment when I get to chat with you guys every single week. As always, leaving a review or a comment below, sharing and giving feedback is so appreciative, not only to help me grow, but also so I can see your guys' thoughts to help me raise my content to help cater to you guys as best as possible. I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic, and I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. If you're looking to connect, you can find me on Instagram at JessieBrown13. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.